Missed.
Time for a little rebellion.
Hostility against the game is one thing, but the amount of hate DmC Devil May Cry faced and still faces is in a whole other category. Ninja Theory's 2013 reboot brought out the worst of the change-aversive Devil May Cry fans, damning and dismissing the game before it even came out. They missed out because DmC was a fantastic game. The sensitive feelings of Ninja Theory and loud demands of fans pushed a whole new ton of features in DmC Devil May Cry Definitive Edition. Do these changes show that the complainers don't know what's best? Let's find out here in this review of DmC Devil May Cry Definitive Edition.
So they say you have the power of heaven and hell within you. Let's test them out, shall we?
Definitive Editions have tiers. There's some that add a considerable amount of content, there's some that straddle the line by not doing much either way, and then there's some that no one really asked for. While DmC might fall into the latter category for some stubborn traditionalists, the plethora of new modes truly makes this version the definitive edition. Aside from the usual 1080p resolution and smooth 60 frames per second, a few steps have been taken to bring the series back to its more hardcore roots. Ninja Theory took that quite literally with the hardcore mode modifier, which shifts some levers to make it more like ye olde Devil May Cry. Enemies don't levitate while Devil Trigger is active, Dante takes more damage, the parry window is shorter, and the coveted style rankings are harder to achieve. The Must Style mode is another modifier that forces stylish play because foes only take damage from an S rank or higher. Turbo mode is the last of the modifiers, upping the game's speed by 20%. Gods Must Die is the only new difficulty, and the hardest one at that. Vanilla DmC's array of difficulties already warranted multiple playthroughs, and all of these unique twists on the core concept make for one of the most replayable games in the genre. Flashy swordplay is present through all of the difficulties and remains relatively untouched since its last generation iteration. Outside of the rebalanced boss fights, manual lock-on, triple angel dash, and the ability to damage the colored enemies with any weapon, combat remains as deep and sophisticated as it ever was. All of the 5 melee weapons and 3 firearms are ready to switch between at will when you finally gain the mental and physical dexterity to use more than one blade per combo. The responsive controls allow for a natural growth in skill, and the complexity of the combos lets the player execute on any given input, granted they can think it up. Each attack has a distinct function and has the space for the hardcore and softcore alike to utilize a large chunk of the moves without memorizing some arbitrary list of combos. The nearly paralyzing sense of freedom pays off in dividends when long, intricate combo strings become a satisfying reality. Pulling yourself to enemies or snatching enemies to you is just as vital to the entire combat system and is responsible for the game never slowing down its swift pace. By being able to seamlessly jump to an enemy, there's no downtime between beatdowns, it's just one pure offensive rush after another. This mechanic also helps with traversal, which is simple but is used well with visually appealing grapple points. Boss battles utilize every facet of the game's mechanics and exhibit awe and spectacle as much as the actual fight. Hitting and sometimes exceeding the series' impossibly high bar, each landmark fight's visual presentation matches its complexity, making for fights that are as deep as they are gorgeous. Bosses may trade a little bit of nostalgic difficulty in favor of some visual flair, but DmC proves that is a worthy exchange. The hottest debate over DmC comes from Dante's redesign, but seeing the fruits of Ninja Theory's narrative strengths takes patience. Dante's trailer trash, stripper banging lifestyle comes to a halt as he is hunted by demons and is recruited by an anonymous-like group called the Order. An undeniably straightforward plot for sure, DmC's tale prides itself on character development and slick presentation over a deep lore rife with twists. Dante is unquestionably a prick in the early hours of the game, complete with corny sexual one-liners and a general repugnant attitude. By being a sleazeball in the beginning, it allows for him to grow as a person and mature as he finds something worth doing with his life. His arc may jarringly switch intensity from time to time, but it's a mostly convincing arc that might be easy to gloss over. Everyone else, for the most part, has their own set of strengths. Even though the treatment of women is occasionally gross and questionable, the villains are appropriately nasty and the trio of protagonists are developed enough to be worth caring about. The motion captured performances help both sides as it shows the subtle facial and eye movements that make the acting much more convincing. However, the ending is a different story, or should I say, the new ending. The regular edition's finale was one of the coolest in recent memory, both satisfying the immediate story but amping up anticipation for a badass high-stakes sequel. The definitive edition edits out the incredible ending in favor of a deflated, tepid closing sequence that sucks the life out of the events immediately prior. While this may be outside of a normal review's jurisdiction, it might be sadly symbolic of a Ninja Theory's non-existent future with the series. Calling this disheartening within the context of this game is petty. This is a colossal disappointment for the series as a whole. The visuals and soundtrack, however, are not disappointing. It looked fantastic on the previous generation of hardware, but the extra power here shows these imaginative worlds in a more flattering light. The most impressive part of the visuals are the dynamic environments. Each beautiful locale is constantly shifting to pull Dante deeper within the colorful world of Limbo. Breaking levels apart allows for some pace-changing platforming that never lets the visual palette grow stale. The soundtrack has a similar effective punch, hitting an electronic dubstep metal hybrid that you didn't know you wanted. Most tracks reinforce the tempo of the game, with fast riffs and synths that are catchy both inside the game and out. Virgil's Downfall, his DLC epilogue, has also been included, along with Virgil's own brand new Bloody Palace, the game's wave-based survival mode. The fedora-less Virgil's chapter takes place after the main game as he gradually regains his power to get revenge on those who shafted him. Narratively, it interestingly provides a non-essential but juicy part of the story that links this game to a non-probable sequel. Gameplay-wise, Virgil isn't quite as flexible as Dante, but has a considerable amount of depth, even when compared to his red-coated twin. His style is a bit more deliberate and thoughtful, but it maintains many of the positive aspects present in the main game. DmC Devil May Cry Definitive Edition is definitively the definitive edition with all of its definitive editions. New modifiers, modes, and fan-requested features have resulted in a better game, but one that mostly succeeds on its prior accomplishments. Dismissive fanboys be damned. DmC Devil May Cry is a classic in the hack-and-slash pantheon, with its nearly endless stream of combos, creative world, and impressive replayability. Even though the prospects of a sequel are foggy at best, DmC can at least rest knowing it got one more shot at making the impact it deserves. The best case scenario is that this redo of an incredible game leads to a sequel, but the worst case scenario is that this definitive edition reboot dies with a single SSS ranking. DmC Devil May Cry Definitive Edition gets a 9.5 out of 10. Thank you guys for watching, and this is Michael Larry, and I'm signing off. Later.
You are dead, just like your mother.
Or mother. I don't know my mother, but if you're calling me a son of a bitch, you wouldn't be the first.